Yo, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of Wos Speaks. Of course, I'm your host, Big Wos, aka Wosny Lambre. Shouts to everybody watching live on YouTube. Shouts to everybody downloading this on your pod. Um, Shouts to everybody tuning in. Shouts to everybody supporting this Count the Dings thing. Um, just a couple of house cleaning items. One, we did bury my dad on Wednesday afternoon. Not bury, we had a ceremony. My dad actually he wanted to get cremated, so didn't do the burial. It was actually his wishes that he was like, yeah, he feels like a funeral plot and all of that stuff. Like in his to quote him, to bury some bones, he felt like was a bad idea. So he wanted to be cremated. So that's what we did, but we had a dope, a nice send off. A lot of his friends and family and people showed up to support. It was really dope. Shouts to everybody that reached out to me, text, Insta, Twitter, all of that stuff. Deeply appreciated and felt. Um, just means a lot to be supported by people who love what we do in terms of the shows and the content that we make, people that we've come across throughout the years and just made friendships and built relationships with. So, deeply touched by that, my family as well. So, shouts to everybody who reached out. And yeah, man, rest in peace to my dad, Wilker Lambre. Um, One more piece of house cleaning to get out the way. I will be headed to Spain on Tuesday. Um, yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of stunting on y'all. We going to Barcelona first. My cousin Isabel is getting married on August the 1st, so we'll be doing that. I think I'm gonna be in Barcelona for like about 6 days, 5, 6 days. And then from there, we're taking a quick flight to Mallorca, which I'm told is Ibiza for grown-ups. And then from Mallorca, after a few days there, we're going to Ibiza, which is the Ibiza for degenerates. And so yeah, man, really looking forward to that. This will be my third time going to Barcelona, one of my favorite cities in the world. Never been to Mallorca or Ibiza, so just super looking forward to that. Just some time to unwind and have a good time, man. Drink a lot of wine, eat a lot of tapas, uh, get some sangria up in me and paella, all of that stuff, some croquetas, all of that. We're going crazy in Spain, so really looking forward to that. But we will be gone for the next 2 weeks, so don't expect the Waz Speaks for the next 2 weeks. I'll be on my summer vacation with my family and friends, and so yeah. So not gonna dive into the Trump Epstein stuff. I think we could take a break from that until some actual news surfaces in terms of what they release. I think they've gotten it in their head that this thing is not going to blow over and they have to give the public something. Also, it doesn't hurt that the Democrats are finally seizing on a moment to like do something, and they finally got in the picture like, oh, this is actually playing. Like the people actually want to know what's in these files. And if Trump is, a part of it, which is like, we already know this guy was homies with him. How could he not come up in a even cursory investigation of this dude? We already knew that. I told you guys that already, but I think the Dems are finally putting some pressure on it. Obviously, there's Republicans in the base and, sort of the bro podcast movement, the like independent kind of guys, the Schultzes, the Rogans, the Tim Dillons, the Theo Vaughns, those kind of guys of that, like they are just telling their audience, like, yo, this is bullshit, this is shady. Like, I can't believe that anybody would support this, blah, blah, blah. So I think they're feeling the pressure. They're gonna release something. We'll see. I don't know. I have a hard time believing anybody's actually gonna be held to account for any of this shit. Maybe I'm being cynical in that regard, but I think it would be cool if they released, some stuff for the public to know what this freaking guy was up to and why he had so many connections within the ruling elite. And because I think it does inform the sort of guiding principles of the ruling elite. The idea that a guy could be a human trafficker of young people and still just lose pretty much no smut on his name. It's just business as usual. Like, yeah, nah, we still rocking with bro. I think that is just a major indictment of the elite in our country. And so, yeah, I would really like to know more about this guy, Epstein, who was so friendly, rubbing shoulders with the most powerful, wealthiest people on the planet. We're talking about Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the history of life. Okay. We're talking about prime ministers in freaking Israel. We're talking about ex-US presidents. We're talking about real estate. Like it's insane the people this guy was rubbing shoulders with. So yeah, I think it would be nice for some disclosures. But to move on from that, what I wanted to talk about today, honestly, is the death of Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan, man. He died at 71 years old. Obviously, he was sick. He leaves behind, if I want to be charitable, a complicated legacy. If I could be frank about my own history, like I don't watch wrestling anymore. I pretty much stopped watching wrestling in like ninth grade. I think going to high school and discovering, girls like mature like girls was just such a mind-blowing, life-altering event. I pretty much stopped caring about wrestling. It just became like sports and other things, and like just being just girl crazy, for lack of a better term. It's just wrestling all of a sudden felt juvenile to me when I got to high school. But before that, basically from the time I can remember, so from 5 until 14, I was not even just a wrestling fan. I was a fanatic, obsessed with wrestling, pro wrestling, whether that be obviously WWF, which would then become WWE, but also WCW, also ECW, like, just obsessed. The Monday Night Wars, the Attitude Era. I came of age during that stuff. And Hulk Hogan absolutely is what turned me on to wrestling. 150%. I was a card carrying member of the Hulkamaniacs. Like, that's what I did, bro. Every Saturday night main event, all of that stuff. Like, bro, Monday Night Raw, Nitro, or SmackDown, all of that stuff. Survivor Series, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Bash at the Beach, like you name it, bro. WrestleMania, of course. King of the Ring. Like, bro, I'm telling you, my history goes deep with pro wrestling, and Hulk Hogan is integral in that. And that's not even to mention watching him in movies, watching his horrible TV show, but still was obsessed with it. Thunder in Paradise. I was even a fan of that. Like, I'm telling you, like, I was the NWO thing when he went to WC, like all of it, Hollywood Hogan. Like, I'm talking about tapped in, locked in. Of course, I would say my favorite, Hogan got me in, but as I got older, like, the like super patriotic, I'm a real American, blah, that came less appealing than like a guy like Shawn Michaels, who I would say no, if I'm being honest, it's The Rock, but right there is Shawn Michaels in terms of my favorite pro wrestlers of all time. I loved Austin. I loved Bret Hart. Loved Owen Hart, rest in peace, with the acrobatics and all of that. Like Rey Mysterio Jr., like bro, I'm talking about just tapped in. But Hogan was it. Like, he was it. The action figures. I had Hulk Hogan action figures at the crib. You know what I mean? Like, when that music would come on, like, I would actually get hyped. And, he turned the WWE into just an international phenomenon. There's just no two ways about it, man. And the guy legitimately brought a lot of joy to my life. And I don't honestly feel complicated about that. And for those of you who don't know about Hogan's complicated history, so this dude, his boy down in Florida is like a radio disc jockey. His man's, I guess his boy's like dream was always for Hogan to pop his wife. And he basically begged Hogan to take his wife down. And he filmed it. right? Whatever. Like, look, man, these grown-ups, y'all do what y'all do. Look, it ain't for everybody, whatever. These are grown-ups, but that tape ended up getting leaked by Gawker Media. They leaked Hogan's text tape. And in other portions of that tape, there's footage of Hogan in his crib talking to his daughter and his wife or whatever about his daughter's new black boyfriend. And he calls him the N-word. And it's revealed that Hogan harbors some level of racial animosity. You know, he's a racist. He's racially problematic, whatever you want to call him. You want to call him virulently racist, have at it, right? So it's not just that he's uncovered, like, you know, that comes out. He ends up suing Gawker Media, gets like 30 million out of it, basically bankrupts that company. They were an internet powerhouse, like a blogging powerhouse before that. Peter Thiel actually helped him file that lawsuit because Peter Thiel got outed as gay in the pages of Gawker. And he hated them pretty much ever since that because he was closeted and they pretty much outed the guy. And so, yeah, you know, you mix that racism element into it and people like he kind of became vilified. And I think Hogan would have mainly been fine if he would have had the self-awareness to just take the L and bite the bullet and be like, yo, my bad. But he didn't double down. He was just like, look, it was a mistake, you know, yo, you know, you can't be candid in front of anybody, blah, blah, blah. He kind of tried to make it be like, yo, I was in a private moment and it's kind of fucked up that it came out. Which, by the way, I think two things can be true. I think it's messed up that it came out, but also like I do think it is informative of the person who he is that he's saying that in a private moment. I think those two things can be true. And my guy Ethan Strauss, he just put out a piece on his Substack, House of Strauss. Make sure y'all go subscribe and check that out. Where he basically, the premise of the piece is just like it's undignified to dance on people's graves. Even if we find some of these people to be morally reprehensible, there's something classless and undignified about going on your Twitter and being a semi-public person and being like, you know, rest in piss or something like that. Like, I think there's something kind of gross about that. And I tend to like be in alignment with Ethan on that, in terms of public figures and the difficulties in squaring our view of these people as almost demigods in certain respects, but the truth of these people that they are human beings and therefore very flawed. I think we have a difficult time, especially in America, with our idols about sort of compartmentalizing what we do with the place that they so obviously hold in our minds and consciousness, but confronting their fallibility, their ability to disappoint us, to do things that we don't agree with, to do things that we find to be horrible. And Hogan is no different. And I don't know. I just couldn't see the utility of me going out in public and pretending that Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea didn't bring me like so much joy as a child. Like, yeah, like I think it's crappy that he said the racist shit in his crib about his, you know, Brooke Hogan's man or boyfriend or whatever. And I could say that as a black dude, like, you know, I think it's whack. Yeah, racism is whack. I don't like this isn't revelatory, but like, I don't know. I don't understand why I would come up here and be like, screw Hulk Hogan. I'm glad he's dead. Like, I just don't get that. And I think there's something just toxic about internet culture that yes, Hulk Hogan made mistakes. Hulk Hogan had problems. But like in a moment of death, to take that time to be like, yo, you know, screw this dude, because, you know, I used to work at Gawker and we built that thing up into be a prestigious, you know, rag. And this guy took us down, you know, not even confronting the idea that like, why are we putting this guy's sex tape out? Like, it's weird. I just got to say, I just don't agree with that. I think, you know, look, there are way more extreme examples of this. Henry Kissinger comes to mind, a dude who got to live to be like freaking 100. And, you read the Pentagon Papers and you learn that the makers of the Vietnam War, from Kennedy to Johnson to Nixon, and all of their generals and all of the analysts, that pretty much by 1967 or something like that, they knew they couldn't win the war, and they continued it anyway to save face. Like, you think about the amount of people who died because of that shit. And then somebody like Henry Kissinger, where it's just like, yo, we've told the people that we're ending the war, we're not sending ground troops, but him and Nixon basically masterminded this scheme to secretly, it wasn't like they thought that they felt like they thought they were doing it in secret, but it wasn't. It was uncovered, but like secretly bomb Cambodia and Laos because the Viet Cong were kind of holed up there, and like they would like doing stuff there and congregating there, and all the innocent people, like for a war that was already lost, that everybody knew, all the powers that be knew could not be won. But in order to do some sort of face-saving operations, carpet bomb the shit out of those places. Now, look, man, if somebody's Cambodian or Laotian and they're like, yo, fuck Henry Kissinger, this dude is responsible for probably hundreds of thousands of senseless deaths across 3 countries in Southeast Asia. Like, directly has a hand in that. That's an extreme example. We might be able to make some level of exceptions for people. And again, I don't want to police how people feel, but like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. But like, I'm sorry, man. Like Hulk Hogan calling his daughter's boyfriend the N-word, I don't think rises to that level. And maybe I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Hit me. Tell me why I'm wrong about that. I just don't understand. I just don't understand the need to go on the internet and do things that way. And I think it's correct to point out the foibles. I think my man, and this is not me being biased, obviously I have a lot of love for Shoemaker, but David Shoemaker, who works with us at The Ringer, did a beautifully written Hulk Hogan obituary. Basically explains to you why this guy is a giant within the industry, but not just the industry of American culture itself, but also confronting the realities of the man, of the human being. I think that's all fair game. But I think this tendency, man, in the culture to go on the internet and try to perform who is the most indignant, who can be the most self-righteous, and it's just nasty. And I think it's counterproductive for all of the things that we're trying to collectively achieve as, a project. If you call yourself quote unquote left wing, I just think it's poisonous to comport yourself that way in public. And that's not to say that there's not times where we need to be righteously indignant, right? I don't know if you guys saw, but like Netanyahu did an interview with the Nelk Boys, and I think rightfully so. They did a puff piece interview with this guy and basically just let him go on there and spew the most easily disproven bullshit Israeli government war machine talking points, like just so easily dispelled, and that they just had no pushback. They're getting killed on the internet. And I think, my guy Adam Friedland put it beautifully, where he's just like, yo, this guy's not up here hawking a book. He's literally selling a genocide. He's literally doing PR and cover for the starvation of children. These guys are actively starving people. Like, this is beyond the pale, right? So I think there's just a difference in kind. Like, again, if some Palestinian person, Netanyahu, drops dead tomorrow and wants to be like, yo, fuck that guy, I'm inclined to move on. But Hulk Hogan, bro, I mean, come on. Yeah, he spoke at the Republican National Convention. Okay. Like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't rise to the level of just some of the nastiness within the culture. I'm not saying you gotta shed a tear for Hulk Hogan, But goddamn, I do think decorum and like self-respect should mean something, man. And like, this guy's dead. He's gone, bro. He doesn't get to be here anymore. I think that's the ultimate, sort of justice of any life, is like that it ends. Like, just to recognize, like, the guy's dead. Like, that's the recognition of his frailty as a human. It's not to say we shouldn't push and fight for people to get better, especially our prominent people, and do better. And I do think he should have been more strident in his apology, but I don't know. I'm just kind of off of the nature of the culture, especially on the so-called left wing of things, where somebody could think that it's cool or a good look to, as Ethan put it, dance on somebody's grave. I just don't find that to be something that anybody would find appealing. And I think one of those Gawker chicks, her post was getting smoked on Instagram. I mean, on Twitter, which, whatever. It's not like Twitter's like some barometer of America at whole. I just think, I don't know. I think the Hogan thing just got me thinking because, again, like, maybe I'm biased because this guy was just a childhood hero and idol of mine. And I really fucking loved wrestling when I was a kid. And this guy was, had as big a hand as anybody outside of Vince McMahon himself. Like, Hulk Hogan is responsible for modern day, what we call sports entertainment, right? And so, yeah, man, I just wanted to get up here and speak on that. And again, if people disagree with me and be like, no, fuck that, he's a bigot, we gotta kill him. All right, I would love to hear, a reasoned argument as to why I'm, full of shit, or I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm more than open to listening to that. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Anyway, that's our show. We will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Big up to my guy, John Gervais, always on the ones and threes, keeping the trains running on time. Become a Patreon at patreon.com/count the dings, man, to support the work we're doing up here. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Peace out.